You're welcome. Let's get through to the details now. This afternoon, the coalition of civil society groups was pushing for the establishment of an independent police complaints commission. It is asking the government to show more commitment in putting up the IPCC unit, which is expected to address cases of human rights brought against the police service. Speaking at a media briefing in Accra, Head of Africa Office of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Mina Mensah, said the slow pace of progress in getting a legal framework for the establishment of the Independent Police Complaints Commission is largely to blame on lack of commitment from the Interior Minister. The group says a number of cases brought against the police in recent times have become cold cases due to the absence of that independent body that has to investigate the police, to avoid the police investigating itself.
The coalition shared its findings with all the relevant stakeholders, including the media, when it presented the research report in 2018. Again and over the last year, the coalition has worked assiduously to engage with some key stakeholders, including the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, the Chief Justice, CHRI, the Police Council, the Legal Aid Scheme, and the Parliamentary Select Committee on Defense and Interior, as well as the National Association of Retired Police Officers, and the media as well, to take forward the recommendations from the research on various models. These stakeholders also made a number of recommendations regarding the independence, the funding, the operationalization, functioning, staffing, and institutional situation of the IPCC. The coalition is happy to report that it has been able to produce a draft legal framework for the IPCC, which has been shared with some of the stakeholders mentioned in the preceding paragraph at a roundtable organized to discuss the same in December 2018. The coalition received inputs from some of the stakeholders and has improved the draft with the recommendations. The coalition, however, notes with regret that it has not been able to engage the Ministry of Interior in these latest initiatives, despite several efforts and attempts to brief the ministry and to get their inputs. Obviously, we all know that that is the parent organization of the Ghana Police Service. And so if you're doing anything, they are very, very key to ensuring that that happens. Unfortunately, we have tried severally and have not been able to engage the minister. While the coalition recognizes that other officials of the ministry have been forthcoming and supportive, it is important that the executive and political head of the ministry, in the person of the Honorable Minister, be seen to be playing a more active role in championing this cause, commenced by his predecessor, as earlier stated. It must be borne in mind that as the line minister responsible for the police, as I stated earlier, he would have to superintend the presentation of the legislative proposals to Cabinet and Parliament. His input, therefore, at this stage is very, very important. The coalition can confidently say that all the stakeholders it engaged are agreed that the IPCC must be established. This moment is also opportune in that the IGP has launched his transformational agenda for the service. This laudable initiative is, however, being blighted by the incessant and persistence of cases of police brutalities. The coalition has been able to catalogue a number of cases from media reports, some dating as far back as 2011, in which innocent civilians have been killed, maimed, or treated with disdain by some police officers. And most of these cases have not been responded to. These cases include the case of Norman Addo, who was killed in 2012 by police officers who claimed he was a notorious criminal in Kumasi. Checks by the media, however, revealed that he was rather a contract worker with Capital Bank who had a psychiatric problem and was being treated for occasional episodes of schizophrenia by a health facility a few meters away from the house where the incident occurred. We cannot end these examples without mentioning the brutal assault on Multimedia's Latif Idrisu, which happened at the police headquarters in Accra over a year ago. To date, the police say they are investigating the incident, yet they claim that they have not been able to identify the culprits. A CHRI media scan indicates that over the last 12 months, that is from last March to date alone, almost 20 cases of police brutalities have been reported in the media space.
That's Mina Mensah there. The coalition of civil society groups includes the Human Rights Advocacy Center, Bureau of Public Safety, CDD Ghana, Amnesty International, among others. Now joining me in the studio is Director of Amnesty International Ghana, Robert Akoto Amwafo. Robert, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I also have here in the studio Gideon Kote Nikwe, who is with the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative from the Africa office. Gideon, you're welcome as well. So Gideon and Robert will be having this conversation with me. But before we begin the conversation, we'd like to bring back a report that we did early this year. Ifwa Evans Chinwe filed that report, and it happened at Teshi and involved one of the cases they are referring to. Take a look.
Divine Aquino, as described by his family, was well-mannered and full of life.
He's the most humble person I've seen. Divine is not someone who will indulge in anything like that at all. If you know Divine, you know very well. Everyone is taken aback by this sudden occurrence. No one has ever come here to say this. We go trace Divine back to his school in Soga School. Nothing. Accra Polytechnic, nothing of the sort. Nothing of the sort. If there was a trend, then we could say, oh, okay. But there's no trend. There's nothing like that. So how? That is what begs the question. How?
His father, Albert Aquino, says he will not rest until justice is served.
If you found him with even something, he told you his dad is near, his house is just here. He has his car in the yard. So let us go. So you see my parents. Just about 5 houses away. And you still went ahead and do that damage. Can they bear that pain? We need justice.
This eyewitness narrates what happened.
I was coming back from nightclub that time with my brother. Okay. So when we met a lady, together you were with him? With my brother, with a lady, but I have to wait for them under the tree. Then they will go inside. So I know our neighborhood, so I decided to sit down. So after searching me, and they saw a motorbike coming around the corner, and they have to drive straight to that place. This corner, and after driving straight carefully, then started shooting. So I wanted to go and see who they shot, but they told me I should go back home.
But the police insist the young man was an armed robber. DSP Efia Tenge is the Greater Accra Regional Police Public Relations Officer.
The police states that the deceased was not shot in a mistaken identity, as claimed or alleged by the family, but died through police gunshot wounds. The second suspect, who escaped, was later also arrested and will be prosecuted in due time. A search conducted on the deceased together with the one who has been arrested led to the retrieval of the lady's phone. And this lady's phone was in the pocket of the deceased, together with a kitchen knife. Other items also included 5 mobile phones. And even these mobile phones, the police suspect they were also stolen or taken in similar circumstance.
Meanwhile, the man who was shot together with Divine is currently receiving treatment at the police hospital. Divine Aquino was a credit officer with Easy Microfinance Company here in Accra until his death. Ifwa Evans Chinri for Joy News.
So far, that report from CHRI, and that case has still not been really dealt with. Now, this is one of the reasons why the coalition believes that there has to be an independent committee that investigates the police, so that the police does not investigate itself, because in cases like this, they're saying that the police is complicit. I have the gentlemen here in the studio. I've already introduced them to you. Let's continue with the discussion. Robert and Gideon, thank you very much for coming once again. So let's start with the work that the coalition has done so far. At what point really did it occur to the coalition that this is a part of the problem, where there is some kind of impunity when it comes to, especially when the tables turn and the police is rather accused of doing wrong to civilians? At what point did it occur to the coalition? Any of you can start.
Okay, so thank you very much once again. So at CHRI, Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative Africa Office, as part of the work that we do is to reform the police. Okay. So in 2005, we started this advocacy where we were trying to get the police to be reformed to suit international standards. Okay. And then also going on in 2014, that is when we brought other stakeholders together to form a coalition where we felt that there was a need to push for an independent body to be set up to actually look into cases of police brutality and other police misdealings.
I asked because I wanted to find out if there was a particular case that triggered this interest, that triggered the need for you to push for the setup of this committee, because I wanted to find out what has become of that particular case.
Okay, so there's no such particular case, but as a CHRI, as part of our work, we've received several complaints from the public on police issues. We ourselves have gone ahead, made complaints to PIPS, then which now is Police Professional Standards Bureau, where complaints have been completed. You ask for a report, and you are told you can't have access to the report. Okay. So that also led to the fact that we felt that there's a need for us to have an independent body, where that body is independent enough to look into some of these cases, so that the report that comes out can be credible to the public, so that the public can have trust. Okay, so it's not like the police is investigating itself once again, like I said, but this afternoon in your press conference, you're also accusing the Interior Minister. You're saying that he's not shown enough commitment. Why do you say so?
Thank you very much. As part of our work, we have engaged so many stakeholders, various stakeholders from government to civil society to so many different groups, even retired police officers. We have always knocked at the door of the Interior Ministry to ensure that we are able to engage them, because they are the key ministry that is expected to help us fast track this process. We believe that because the police is in their hands, they have the expertise. They are the government agency responsible for policy under the government. So we are expecting that they would help us in the process. Unfortunately, we have knocked several times. We have even been, myself, part of it, been to the police council, where the Interior Minister was there, where the Vice President instructed in where I was that this thing should be done and it should be looked at as soon as possible. As usual, there are just a few tweaks that they don't agree with. And we expect that we all sit at a table and discuss these few tweaks and make sure this happens. But unfortunately, we've not had a fruitful feedback, especially from the minister.
Do you want to share these tweaks that you're talking about with us? What exactly? So, and Mina said that you have a draft policy, and you've presented this draft policy to the police council, of course, to the and the Interior Ministry as well. You're expecting the ministry. What exactly is the role that the minister has to play in this tweak that you talk about? And first of all, if you can tell us what this tweak is about, which part of it wasn't comfortable for them?
So if you look at the discussion all over the world globally, most of the time some of the issues that that we have to discuss would have to be who is funding this Independent Police Complaints Commission, where will it be situated, how will it operate, who and who should constitute those things. But as you may be aware, we would need the ministry that is the policy. Their role is a policy organization. They are supposed to help us in all these processes to make sure that we as civil society have put up the framework, so that we want them to give us the technical support and assistance, because it is the minister who will table it, you know, for discussion. It is the minister who will forward it to Parliament and all of that for discussion to the Attorney General. So if he is not showing interest at this level, then we seem to be at a stumbling block. And we have all these cases that could have been investigated if this complaints commission was in place.
Okay, and then the parts that they're not happy about, or the part that the ministry is not happy about, because you mentioned that there's some tweaks that you need to do. What really is there? Why is that even a problem?
Okay, so like Robert just mentioned, so because we as civil society can't sort of fund an independent body, so we come from government to fund it. So we need to agree on what best needs to be done. So that's why we put in a draft policy.
So hold on, is your proposal for government to fund this organization or this independent body, and government is saying no?
No.
That's not it. Okay, so I'm trying to find out why it is being held up. Why is there a part of the draft that is not comfortable for government or is not comfortable for the ministry, which is why it's delaying the processes? And I don't know if you'll be able to answer that. Okay,
just to respond to that, so in our engagement with other stakeholders, they've all agreed that there's actually the need for us to have an IPCC set up. So in terms of the ministry, we've met with all the other key stakeholders, but we've not been able to meet the minister.
The Interior Minister?
Yeah, the Interior Minister, which looks to be the key stakeholder to more or less take the process, begin that process. So that is where we have the challenge. So we've not been able to get ideally what exactly the ministry wants.
He's not made himself available.
Exactly. So to even discuss the tweaks that we are talking about, because it's only when we are able to get him to sit and we say, okay, this is what we don't want. So even what, as you're asking us, why is it that they are not responding? We don't.
So you can't even you can't even be certain that this is a part of the bill that, or the part of the draft policy that is not working. Because you've not had access to the minister. But the minister has been around. I mean, what is it that he doesn't want to talk to you, or you call him and he doesn't go through? Like, what's happening?
So it's more of this thing of, we have sent a letter, we are waiting for response, follow up, no response. Tomorrow there's a meeting here, there's not around. You know, all these things that goes around. But we believe that if this is put in place, it will help all of us. And government, certain parts of the discussions we had with some government institutions have said clearly that it is a very important body to put in place, from the Legal Aid Board to the CHRI, to the police themselves, because at the beginning of the discussion they were involved in the process. So and in fact we have it on record that they have even initiated that discussion of putting in place an independent body that will help them within the discussion. So for us, we believe that we've come so far. We just need a push, you know, and to get the key stakeholder involved, because that is the only stumbling block now. That is not making us move forward. So once we have him on the table to discuss, so that we start making the headway, we'll be grateful for that.
Do you have a time frame that you're looking to, within which you're looking to get this done?
As soon as possible. So a target frame, we can give ourselves the next 6 months to try and get the minister engaged, and then the draft framework is worked on into a policy which can be presented to cabinet. Yes.
Isn't there any other way you can go without necessarily going through the Ministry of Interior? I mean, earlier when the Speaker took over as Speaker of Parliament, one of the things that he indicated was that there are times when the executive, it's become convention that the executive is actually those that are usually passing or bringing bills to Parliament, but that he was also looking at a point where individuals, like where citizens can bring in. Isn't there an option that the coalition can explore, or is not something that you've really thought about as of yet?
So for various points, one is that once this particular policy falls under a specific ministry, and they are responsible for the police, and this is in conjunction with the police, we need the ministry support.
You need the ministry support.
And another key thing is that once it also has a budgetary component, I'm well educated that if the policy, the policy or the law that is going to be initiated is if it's going to go through a private member's bill, it doesn't have to have budgetary implications.
Okay.
So once this has a budgetary implication of maybe paying,
there has to be a sponsor.
There has to be someone who receives the funding.
An institution that's sponsoring it.
Exactly.
Interesting. Well, the Mr. Interior Minister, if you're watching us, it appears that the coalition says you are delaying the establishment of this commission that's supposed to help the entire country, that's supposed to help us unravel some of these mysteries surrounding people who are being killed, who the police tell us are armed robbers, etc. What is why wouldn't you look at some kind of tweaks to the work that PIPS does? Isn't there? I mean, I understand people say that PIPS is like police investigating itself, and so it is not healthy, it is not independent, etc. The police can cover up, and it does. We have instances where that has happened. But can't we look at PIPS and rather propose tweaking PIPS to make it work? Isn't that a workable solution?
I don't think there was this common phrase. A decorated monkey is still a monkey. Yeah. So, because I believe that with PIPS, it was first situated at the police headquarters. Then it was moved to Asalam down. But it's still manned by police people. It still hasn't changed, even from the movement from the police headquarters to where they are now. And if from previous years, PIPS have investigated, or Bureau of Public Safety have investigated issues, and there's still no reports. And they still have to report to the IGP. So you send in a report requesting for a report that has been sent, and then you are being told the IGP has to approve before that is released to you.
Okay.
And they have gone, the police has gone through transformations.
Yeah.
We have seen the transformation one. Okay. But we haven't seen the real transformation, especially when it comes to dealing with police committing offences against the civilians, that we need reports to that effect, so that we as civil society can take action, to ensure that the rights of individuals are protected, just like the story you mentioned. How they have shown all these guns isn't the same thing they did in the previous case in
Kumasi, for example.
Yes, exactly. So they've shown all these guns and knife and things, but we have a report that it wasn't true. So how can we trust them? The only way they can make us trust them as a police body is to give us an independent body which would tell us, okay, what they said was true. Then we have a two sides to the story to confirm.
Well, let's wrap up this conversation. You tell us a little bit of what's in this draft policy. If you could give us the highlights in this draft policy that would change things.
Okay, so the draft policy talks about how the selection of a commissioner to man the independent commission is done. The various agencies that need to send representatives. So you have agencies such as the Ghana Bar Association and then CHRI, all of these, and then other key stakeholders also being on the board. And it also proposes how the investigation, so the structure of the commission should be like. So should it be a complaint-taking institution alone, or where it can also investigate? So it talks
on
about
its own, without a complaint.
Yes. So it talks about all of these issues as well.
And so these are the things you believe will cause change in the way that the police, when it's commit offenses against civilians, are.
Yeah, and then also to add to it, most people believe that the IPCC is a tool against the police, which is not. It's also going to help the police service themselves. Imagine having police officers, junior rank officers, who have issues with their senior officers. I don't think in the current situation that we find ourselves, a junior officer will be able to walk to PIPS or any institution and say, I have a complaint against this senior officer, and that issue will be dealt with properly.
And is there a part where it has to keep the complainants anonymous?
Yes. The IPCC states all of that.
Yes. Sounds like a very interesting proposal there, but we'll see how it goes. What is your next line of action finally? Let me start with you, Robert.
So one, we haven't lost hope. We are going to continue, as I explained at the press conference today, it's an advocacy process. Advocacy processes can take long, like the right information law, affirmative action, and all of that. So we will continue to engage. We'll continue to see which stakeholders would let the minister listen, as we are doing now. And then also we'll continue to educate people and educate the police also to understand that this thing is not against them. It is for all of us. It's to protect every individual. They are friends, they are friends of theirs, family members of theirs who are not police people, who could fall under a situation like this. So that is what we are looking at doing, and then continually get more stakeholders on board to support the process as we go along.
Very well. Yours, final words?
So my final words is to also call on the media and then stakeholders to also support this push, because like Robert just mentioned, even if you're a police officer, at one point when you take off your uniform, you become a civilian. You could become a victim. Yes. So this is not just for people who feel that it is just about us. It's for everybody. So let's all support and push it so that we can have an IPCC. If it means we have to make it a political election issue, probably we'll have to take it through that.
Well, guess what? Election 2020 is just around the corner, and that gives you certainly a very great platform. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming. Robert Akoto-Amoafo is Country Director of Amnesty International, and I also did with Gideon Nikwe. Gideon is with the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming.